Hello and welcome everyone to today's News Tonight, the weeknight news show where we're joined by special guests and our lovely patrons to discuss the day's gaming news. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined as always by my good friends and GVG co-founders, Steve Bowling and Ash Polson, along with our very special guest, Kevin the Golden Bolt. We just had a Ratchet and Clank State of Play. I needed to bring this Ratchet and Clank guy on, so welcome Kevin, how you doing?
Good, I'm good. Thank you for having me. How you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Yeah,
doing great.
Good. It's a
Better
Friday.
now that you're here, man.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you. Friday. Thank you. Yeah, and we got Ratchet and Clank to talk about. It's a good day.
Yeah. Derek and I will go for like an hour and a half about just Ratchet.
Oh, we could easily just fill up this entire show with just us gushing over Ratchet and Clank. I need to watch some your Going Commando retrospective, and you just actually put out a analysis of.
Yes, I took inspiration from the analysis machine on that one heavily. And I went through just everything I saw. There were some really cool little secrets hidden behind. A lot of Twitter caught everything. Like one of the weapons cut from the first game seems to be in this game, which is like just going all the way back 20 years. They finally brought it back, which is really cool.
That is pretty cool. I noticed that a lot. That's something I learned a while ago is I can't look at Twitter while I'm trying to work on an analysis because you just everybody's pointing it out and putting it right there. It's like, well, what do I have to show?
Yeah.
So you're always trying to find the ways that you can kind of connect it. But I definitely want to check those out because it's nice to have a fellow Ratchet and Clank fan because they sell well, but nobody ever talks about them, it seems.
Yeah, I've always noticed that. I spoke to a couple creators way back in the past, and they were like, yeah, there's not really like Ratchet and Clank people on YouTube. They just don't get views for some reason. And I've been trying to do what I can to help that with like these long feature-length retrospectives that I've made of the first two games and going through the rest of the series. And it's been a lot of fun, which is really cool.
I was looking at a comparison between A Rift Apart and the Ratchet and Clank movie, and I was shocked to actually realize that I think the game in some ways looks better than the movie, which is crazy.
It's incredible because that only came out 5 years ago. Like that was like it wasn't a full budget movie, but it had a bigger budget than the game did, the PS4 game. And to see Rift Apart now is just absolutely amazing to see like where Insomniac's jumped in just a few years from the PS4 game, which looked amazing, to Spider-Man, which looked even more amazing, to being like one of the top dogs at the PlayStation brand again. It's really cool to see.
Mm-hmm. I've not actually seen the Ratchet and Clank movie and never heard good things. And
it's fun.
I didn't hear great things about it.
I saw it in theaters. I was one of 5 people in the theater. 2 of them were my friends, and then it was a father and son. That was the day it came out. We were the first show. It was okay. I mean, it wasn't offensive. It was just kind of there. So it was cool that I got to see it on a big screen.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they brought in all the voice actors for it. That's a nice touch. But...
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah, it before it came out, it seemed like it was set to be one of the better video game movies, and then I wanted to see it, and then it came out, and I heard such bad things. I was like, all right, well, that's too bad. But I absolutely do agree that in general, especially mainly as a gaming franchise, Ratchet and Clank deserves better and more consistent love. Obviously, Rift Apart looks amazing, but I do wish people talked about the series more because it's just so consistently great.
And I think this might be the point at which we start to see that, because this is the first game since Tools of Destruction back on the PS3 where they're getting like that big production feel. Tools of Destruction had the longest development of any Ratchet and Clank game, which had 12 months of pre-production and 12 months of production. So that game was effectively made in a year. This game, I think, is the first game in the series to have more than a year of production ever.
Wow.
Even the PS4 game had 10 months.
Wow. What?
Yeah. I saw that we mentioned it was only 10 months. It's amazing what they can do in such a short amount of time because it always looks brilliant. But that's the thing that always impressed me playing through the PS2 versions, because the quality of Ratchet and Clank just kept improving with each game release. Yeah. It's like, how are they doing this? It's only been a year.
And they're putting Resistance out on alternating years every other year for the PS3 games.
Right.
Like, they've made more games per year than any studio besides like Rare overall. And like obviously a few shovelware studios, I'm sure, but
right. It's amazing that Insomniac wasn't bought by Sony way before this.
Yeah.
Right. I was already impressed enough by what we saw during the State of Play yesterday, but I did go back and watch it in the full 4K on my TV last night, and my God, you guys, I hate to say it looks next gen because it's such a tired thing to say, but this really gives me next gen vibes in a way that I don't think I've really seen yet from a PS5 game. Like Astro's Playroom feels next gen because of the incredible stuff they do with the DualSense, and I assume they're doing the same thing, much the same thing with Ratchet. But just the visuals, the cityscape, when you see that cityscape and you see all the cars flying and it's so alive, it's incredible looking.
See, I would counter that. I think a handful of games actually look and feel next gen. I would say Miles Morales, which is another Insomniac game. Yeah. The Spider-Man remake, which is kind of a twofer, right?
You kind of just
Returnal, I think looks. I don't think Returnal looks next gen. Yeah. I think it feels next gen. It is very clearly like a 1080p upscaled game, so that it hits that constant 4K 60 FPS. But I would say Ratchet and Clank is, specifically Rift Apart, is the first game that kind of takes all those various pieces of what a next gen game is and puts them all together in something that feels like a big budget AAA, truly next gen experience. It is a cut above even Miles Morales. Like the visual presentation in Rift Apart is ridiculous, and
the fur textures on Ratchet are just unbelievable.
There was a tweet I saw that was retweeted by one of the tech leads at Insomniac, which was that the eyes of Ratchet have like ray tracing from the glove weapon.
Yes,
it's absurd. God, it's the smallest things, and it's just I don't know how they would pull this off. Even with 3 years of development on this hardware, it's just absurd.
Yeah, it is.
Insomniac Wizards.
I mean, it is really crazy the level of performance they're able to draw out of the hardware platforms they're on. Honestly, I would liken at this point Insomniac in terms of their level of hardware expertise to Nintendo EAD in terms of just how much they're able to draw out of the platform they work with.
I mean,
yeah.
Going Commando and Up Your Arsenal on PS2 had massive amounts of enemies on screen for that era, and never a hint of slowdown.
And those games, I don't know if you guys have played the PS3 ports, like the HD collection. The reason the HD collection struggled as much as it did was because Insomniac hacked every possible thing they could to make those games work. They would specifically code there are certain elements like in Ratchet 3, partway through the game, every enemy turns into a robot. And they went back and made every previous enemy in old levels a robot. They had to put that specific part of the game's code at the innermost part of the disk so the game would load in time. And mind you, Sony didn't let them have load screens. Like they had the space masking of loading screens while Ratchet and Clank are flying through space. But Sony's directive during the early PS2 days was their own games cannot have load screens. So they had to mask all of it. They had to load everything in real time.
It's
amazing.
Yeah, it's unreal.
It really is. I can't wait. I mean, the fact that and FF7 Remake Integrate are coming out right next to each other.
Yeah.
June's such an amazing month for PS5
the fact
owners.
That we get, and I hate to sound like, I'm just dropping my not a fanboy facade for a minute. We get Ratchet and Clank, we get Intergrade, and if things stay true to their schedule, we get fucking Forbidden West this year too. That is
and God of War supposedly.
Yeah,
I don't think God of War is happening.
I don't think
I am fully in the God of War 2022 camp at this point. But I mean, even without God of War, what a lineup! What a lineup of incredible games.
If they could pull off Horizon for November, I think Sony's in good shape.
I
think there's a chance Horizon could slip. I do think there's a chance.
I agree. I
would be surprised because that's marketed as a PS4 game as well. So
that's true too.
Unless they drop the PS4 version, if there's enough of a sales incentive to do that. And based on the PS5 sales so far, there might be, depending on how many are
they
actually
might want to look hard
hands.
at Ratchet sales because there is no PS4 version of Ratchet.
Yeah, that's the first one where you can tell it's ground up PS5. Whereas Horizon, I'm sure we'll be able to tell is a Miles Morales situation where it's a cross-gen hybrid game. But I'm sure that PS5 version is going to look just incredible because Horizon still looks amazing today.
Yeah. I've played it on PC very recently, and I was blown away by how good that game looks. It does not show its age at all. So Horizon Forbidden West is going to be cool. We're kind of in PlayStation's version of Nintendo's 2017 here. Just a ton of really great games in the pipeline.
And even Nintendo has some solid stuff. Like I played some new Pokemon Snap, and it's been a lot of fun. Like it's addicting.
I really, really want to get it. I told myself that I could not order it digitally. I have to get it physically because I know my kids are going to want to play it. I was like, that game's going to travel around this house and I don't want to buy multiple copies. So I'm going to do that. But I also want to go out and pick up the printer so I can print the little pictures. So I'm going to go spend like $200 for no reason is what I'm saying.
Yeah, like based on what you're saying, Steve, I'm not sure if I'm feeling like FOMO or if I'm feeling relieved because I just have never cared about Pokemon Snap the way so many others have. And I just feel nothing for it. I want to play it at some point, sure, but I just don't feel the need to go out and grab it. And
there's something exciting about finding that next Pokemon. Like, oh, I gotta get a picture of that. And they found some smart ways to expand it. Not perfect ways, but good ways.
It looks beautiful. Like visually, like seeing the Pokemon in their natural habitat. I'm not sure if they've ever looked better. Like just the visuals, it's looking great.
Yeah. And I've heard it's a meaty game too. Like I've heard, 8, 10, 12 hours, maybe more, depending on, if you catch them all.
According to Sarah B, he doing a crit path, he beat it in 8 hours. I got the credits in 8 hours. Did not see all the Pokemon, all that. I saw a tweet today from John Cartwright that he completed his photo decks, and that's only just getting at least one picture of every Pokemon in about 33 hours.
Wow!
So if you want to, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4-star pictures for every Pokemon in that photo decks. So if you want to get everything, there's plenty of gameplay.
I could be wrong, but I could have sworn that Sarah B said he completed his photo decks, but he only got 1-star pictures or something like that in 8 hours.
I don't know. I have to look at his tweets again.
I could be wrong about that, but either way, that's a lot of gameplay because I remember Pokemon Snap, like the original, being a pretty short and sweet experience. Yeah. I really liked it. But I'm with you, Ash. I'm kind of like, I wasn't a huge fan of it, and this is not a game that I'm insanely hyped for, but also it's I see my friends playing it and I'm like, God, I really want to try that. Also, every screenshot I've seen is just gorgeous, and I do love Pokemon. And if Snorlax is in it, I have to buy it. So
I haven't seen Snorlax yet.
Don't tell me that. I'm just going to buy it on blind faith.
Nice. Speaking of gorgeous visuals, we have a few people in the chat reminding us of our PS5 hype that Kena is also coming this year.
Right. Yes.
And we cannot overlook Kena. It looks, August. I cannot wait for that game.
Kena is when? August?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's when it was delayed to, yeah.
Oh, man. No More Heroes 3 will be in the way, so y'all have
I'm
August
trying to claim
24th.
Kena. I'm trying to claim Kena, so there we go.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you guys read... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
To jump back to Pokemon Snap, I don't know if you guys have had the chance to read the Ask Iwata book that came out recently.
Not yet, I want to.
Not yet, I want to, though.
There's a comment from Miyamoto. There's a couple pages where he talks about that Pokemon Snap was one of the few games that he and Iwata worked together on, hand in hand, like properly. And I was reading that, knowing that new Pokemon Snap is a thing, and it almost made me wonder, like, do you think maybe he got a little nostalgic while like writing some words about his friend that maybe if this was in production for a little while, that maybe eventually he decided to like kind of like say, hey guys, what if, like, because we know like Pokemon Snap's been highly demanded for years and no one jumped on it. And then the moment we finally get a game announced and almost out, that book comes out and we hear Miyamoto saying he has fond memories of working on Pokemon Snap with Iwata in a weird, style that they never had before, because that was the only game I think that they're both credited on properly as like designers / developer. And it was just really heartwarming and made me want to play new Snap more.
I could see that. I could see, I mean, if I had a way to create a tribute to a longtime friend, I would absolutely go for it. In my case, it would be a YouTube video, but I could definitely see in the process of making this book, that kind of inspiring someone to jump into development on something like this. But it's always hard to tell with Nintendo. They're the most opaque company of all of the big three.
For sure.
Yeah.
Real quick before we get too much farther, though, I do need to mention that today's episode is sponsored by Straight Lace and the Soul Device. We got involved. I was like, I got Kevin here. I'm like, I want to jump right in Ratchet Clank. I am so sorry, Straight Lace. That's my fault. you know how these conversations go. That said, the Soul Device is a puzzle platformer built on the concept of making your own platforms to solve puzzles and explore the environment, consuming the player's HP in the process. There are many rooms to explore and several abilities for the player to unlock, and as of today, or when we first got this copy, the Soul Device is now free on Steam for anyone to pick up. If you decide to play it, the developer Straight-Lace would love to hear any honest feedback you have, as a sequel is currently in development. And Straight-Lace wants to improve upon anything the first game may falter in. Straight-Lace also wants to thank those who supported the game up till now, as your support has helped reach it to this point. However, in addition to that, on Saturday, May 1st, or today, if you're watching the VOD, at 2 p.m., Straight-Lace will be hosting a charity live stream on his YouTube channel to support the charity Simple Needs Georgia. During the stream, Straight-Lace will be rapidly developing a game from scratch, but the game he develops will be decided on by the viewers. The game's genre, gameplay, characters, goals, and more will all be determined by chat either during the stream or in polls prior to Straight-Lace's community in polls prior on Straight-Lace's community page. Milestone rewards include cameos from Straight-Lace's cats and sister, a dog reveal, the creation of custom music for the game, and if the community manages to raise as much money as Straight-Lace dumped into gacha games, Straight-Lace will return to making content for the game Dragalia Lost. The stream requires participation to work, though, so he hopes to see you on May 1st. So yeah, definitely check that out. Support that wonderful charity and check out some game development process. That might be kind of eye-opening.
Yeah. Real quick, I do have one thing that ties into game development.
Well, real quick before we even vote that, Straight-Lace in the chat, I'm sorry. He says, as of now, it's looking like it might be a dating sim. So,
all right.
Oh, that's really exciting. Well, I mean, you've got your work cut out for you, man. There's a Colonel Sanders dating sim out there already. So
yeah, that's right. That's that's what I'm playing.
Dating sim. So there's a lot of opportunities out there.
Yeah. So real quick, just a little tiny piece of housekeeping. I know we mentioned it previously on the show. Triss, our former Game Explain colleague, reached out to me today to let me know that they were able to raise enough money to recover, to move into a new home. So they wanted to extend their thanks to the community. There's still some more ongoing efforts. So stay tuned to Triss's Twitter. One of the things they specifically asked that we mention is that if you want to show your support for them in a different way, they recently held a Paperverse Direct, which included a bunch of games from the Paper Mario community, including one that Triss themselves is working on. You can find out more information at twitter.com/Paperverse if you'd like to give them some support. They uploaded their Direct video at about 2:30 p.m. today, so you can just go watch the VOD version any old time. But go ahead, show them your support. You know, we're big fans of Triss here. Triss is a friend of the channel, and anything we could do to support him, we will. And this is an easy way. Just check out their game.
Yeah.
And Derek and I have been lucky enough to demo their game at PAX East a couple of times. It's called Seahorse Saga, and you should definitely check it out because Derek and I can both vouch for the fact that it's coming along very well. It's
been cool to see it improve each year that we got to play it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
Nice.
So, yeah, definitely check all that out. But I suppose we should probably get to the news. As much as we could probably just whatever right now. It'd be so easy.
Yeah, what?
Let's go ahead and bring up our first topic. So, a GDC survey has revealed some developer thoughts on COVID delays and digital storefront revenue splits, revealing some interesting stuff here. And that includes 44% said their project got delayed because of COVID, and this is of 3,000 plus developers being asked. 3% of the think that the 30-70 revenue split on digital storefronts is justified. That sounds about right.
Yikes.
PS5 is the most popular console to develop for, while PC is the most popular platform. And 35% report working from home increased their productivity. 32% didn't notice a change, and another 32% said their creativity or productivity has decreased. Also, 51% of the devs also say yes to unionization, 14% no, and 24% maybe. So it's interesting there how this is some of these go out. You got to hear from the developers sort of what they're working on, and yeah.
I'm a little surprised that 44% figure isn't higher. I kind of figure that a higher percentage of devs' project would have been delayed due to COVID. And on top of that, I just find it interesting, not surprising necessarily, but interesting that there's almost an even split down the middle of devs who say working from home increase their productivity versus those who say working from home decreased it. It's 35 versus 32.
It's kind of different for everybody.
It is. Yeah, it's a very personal thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been working from home since the pandemic started, and I can tell you that I get a lot more done being here, because I personally find people walking up to me and talking to me while I'm trying to work to be very distracting. They'll pull me away from whatever I'm doing and have me focus on something else. And for me, that is a huge hindrance. Like, I hate that. Whereas if I can choose. It's way easier when you're not in an office environment and people can't just walk up and talk to you to say, oh, I'm just not going to answer that and I'm going to finish what I'm doing now and I'll come back to it later. I feel less guilty about being like, hey, I'm busy. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the 44%, I noticed that Jason Schreier also noted that it was 44% so far. So I think that might be part of it. I'm sure we're going to see, like, this year is the year that COVID delays are really going to be more noticeable. Last year, a lot of these games were already almost done. So the delays were maybe a couple months just to, get the rest of polish or, final QA or anything done. I think this year, like God of War, I don't know why they even announced that for 2021. They should have just, that's a lie. It's not coming out this year. There's no way.
Ambitious.
Like,
Yeah.
So I think that you'll see a lot of the big budget titles. Like, I'm sure Breath of the Wild 2. We don't know that it would have been this year anyway, but if it was, I'd be surprised if it still was, just by virtue of how much work would have to be left.
Yeah, especially with Nintendo struggling more than most, it feels.
I'm torn on that. I'm torn on that for two reasons. The first is that the rumblings of a Switch Pro coming out this year are getting louder. And I feel like you don't launch a Switch Pro without a game of the caliber of Breath of the Wild 2. I think Nintendo probably attributes a lot of the Switch's early momentum to the original Breath of the Wild, and rightfully so. That game was amazing. So I think that they would want to, or at least be trying very, very hard to, like maybe with blinders on at this point, trying to get that game out the door so that it can launch with new hardware. I would say basically if the Switch Pro is real, because let's face it, we don't know it's real until Nintendo tells us it is, despite what firmware and millions of people are saying. If it is real and it is coming out in 2021, I feel like Breath of the Wild 2 is there with it on day one. If for whatever reason the Switch Pro does not release this year, then Breath of the Wild 2 doesn't either. I feel like those two are, from a marketing perspective, linked. Yeah.
My theory... Oh, I'm sorry, Ash, go ahead.
No, please, go ahead.
My theory was that the Switch Pro, if it were going to launch, would launch with Pokemon Legends, because that game seems like it's going to be kind of a mess either way. I'm looking forward to it, but that game, it's got a lot of work left. And the fact that they were confident enough to show gameplay before Breath of the Wild 2 makes me think that that's the kind of game where that will sell a Switch Pro because it's Pokemon. And then you would feasibly, let's say, second half of 2022, release Breath of the Wild 2 as this is the real one. But it's also possible we saw Halo get delayed out of the console's launch window. So I think anything is currently possible in this weird world we're currently in, and hopefully on the cusp of starting to come out of.
Yeah, I think you're right. And while I do agree that Breath of the Wild 2 does seem to be intrinsically linked to the Switch Pro's release, I just can't shake the feeling that it's just Breath of the Wild 2 isn't ready for this year. Either way, and it may be that one affects the other in the opposite way too, such that if Breath of the Wild 2 isn't ready this year, then Nintendo pushes the Switch Pro to next year. Yeah. And everything we've heard about it releasing this year maybe just shifts a little bit. But
without getting too far into this tangent, I'm totally with you on that, Ash. I think that they would push the console release, and I hate to say this because I love Pokemon. I love Pokemon as a series. I'm not like a super fan, but I think that Nintendo markets it way more towards kids than they need to. I think that, we didn't get a special Pokemon edition regular dockable Switch when Sword and Shield came out. We got a Lite, which is considered by many to be the kid version of the Switch because, it's harder to break and it's cheaper.
there might be a plan to that. Get the kids involved, because obviously each generation's some kids' first Pokemon game, and as we've seen for most of us, you get kids into Pokemon at a young age, and well, they're hooked for life. They're the adults buying it 20 years later, and they're still there.
Yeah.
See, I feel
Plus
bad.
The Switch Lite is also. I'm sorry, I keep cutting.
Oh
people
no,
off today.
please go ahead. Go ahead. I talk all the time on this show.
Well, thank you. I was going to say the Switch Lite is also like a big target towards Japan. So I think having a targeted Pokemon model Switch Lite makes a lot of sense, considering I think the Switch Lite has outsold the Switch in Japan, if I'm not wrong. I think already it has.
Wow. Surprised me.
That wouldn't surprise me either.
I could be wrong. I could be pulling that out of places, but I thought I read that recently.
I'm not sure on that. I believe you though. It wouldn't surprise me, given Japan Nintendo, they're the same thing. It wouldn't surprise me, given that in Japan the DS and other portable consoles that were strictly portable were insanely popular. So I could definitely see a lighter, easier to carry version of the Switch doing better numbers.
It's also interesting here that 3% think the 70 revenue split on digital storefronts is justified. I can't believe we even got the 3%. Because it kind of ties into our next news story.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and bring that up. All right. Halo, the bulk of this is that Halo Infinite will support crossplay and progression between the PC and Xbox. However, attached to this is that starting on August 1st, the dev share on the Microsoft Store will increase from 70% to 88% in the devs' favor. And
hell yeah,
that feels like a big deal. Like way more than cool. Halo Infinite, they're saying it's going to go have for the premier PC experience, it's going to have ultra wide and super ultra wide support, have triple keybinds, all this, fancy stuff for PC games. But man, that dev share increase. That's a good way to court some devs to your system.
Yeah, I wonder what Sony's revenue split is, or Nintendo's for that matter. I don't know that, but
I thought they were all 70-30. I thought they were all pretty uniform or close to uniform. The last I recall,
that's what I remember reading somewhere. I don't have any backup for that. Don't quote me on that, but I do recall at least hearing or reading somewhere over the years that they're pretty similar to one another.
Yeah. My first thought with this was beyond that's awesome was I wonder if this has anything to do with Game Pass, because a lot of Microsoft's income now is coming from Game Pass as far as the Xbox brand goes. With I think they just broke 25 million users or something like that. Like there was some incredible number I saw recently, which is like $15 to $25 a month they're getting from everybody in that group. So I almost wonder if they're seeing the market shift more towards Game Pass than buying games. So they're kind of throwing a bone to get people to buy games, first off, because more developers will make games, but also because it's not going to hurt their bottom line that much, more of a business perspective.
True.
I don't think there's a way to categorize this as a bad move. I think it's a really shrewd maneuver because, offering developers a higher cut of revenue is going to, as you guys implied, attract more folks to the console from a development perspective. Getting more games on the Xbox platform makes more games potentially available for Game Pass. So, and I don't pretend to understand the magic of how our Game Pass dollars get into the pockets of the developers that put the games on there. I don't know how that works. I've heard from a few folks on the other side of the industry that it does, though, and that it does so very well. I just wish I understood it, because to me it's all just some kind of magical algorithm that decides how much money you get. Yeah, like I don't know if it's like Microsoft just pays them a flat fee based on how many people, or is it X number of people downloaded and spent X number of hours playing the game, therefore you get X amount of their subscription dollars. It all seems very weird, but I think this is another move that positions Microsoft. I think Microsoft is playing a very long game here. They are focusing less on enrichment of the Series X, which you can totally tell because there's no original games for it yet that make use of the hardware. Like Sony's out here producing AAA traditional console experiences, and Microsoft is kind of slowly acquiring studios and building up a library. And I would say in 2 generations, we'll see that Xbox is way more of a service than a platform. And man, if we get to the day where I can just buy a PlayStation and a Nintendo console and play Xbox games, you know, via some other means on those consoles, I'll be pleased. I'm one of those people, one of those diehard conspiracy theorists that every time I see Phil Spencer on a video and he's got a Switch on one of his shelves in the background, I'm like, come on, Game Pass for Switch, just come on, do it.
Yeah. That was a theory I've had for a little while now. My crazy theory with Microsoft was that this was even last gen, once in 2018 the Xbox division was spun into its own brand. My theory was that if they go crazy, there's a hypothetical there where they could purchase EA. There were talks of that back in 2019 or so. They purchase EA. They now have the exclusive rights to Madden and FIFA, the 2 biggest things for the casual gamer. If you then, as Microsoft, require Xbox Live as a service for people to play on PlayStation 5 or Switch, you're strong-arming your main competition, which is at that point Sony. Because now they have to let your service on their platform, and that's the one thing they've never wanted. Yep. And it would be really fascinating to see. Like, I don't think that's going to happen now, because now Microsoft seems interested more in things like Discord that fell through and other stuff here and there. But that's been like my long con theory the entire time, is that they're going to buy one of these massive studios like EA, get all those rights to Star Wars and to Madden and to all the sports games, and find a way to argue that Sony either doesn't get those games because they won't let Xbox Live on that system, or something crazy to just have that extra pull.
Yeah, they're definitely playing, as Steve has said, the long game, but also just a different game, a completely different game than the one PlayStation and Nintendo are playing, focusing so heavily on their actual hardware, on their console centric ecosystems, right? Xbox is taking a completely different approach with things like Game Pass and planting long-term seeds, as we've just been talking about. But and going back to the original story, there is really no way that I don't think you could frame this as negative in any possible way. For players who don't really dig into the weeds too much of how their games are made, they're getting cool. They're getting crossplay and PC and Xbox cross progression in Halo Infinite. But for people who do really dig in and care about the devs behind these games, the dev share ratcheting up to 88% is fantastic news for them as well. It's just good news all around.
Yeah.
And it's funny that Series X just does not seem like, you'd think they'd let Series X be have that one major exclusive with a Halo Infinite, but you have a decent PC and you're good to play it. That's all it comes down to. And I should also mention they're promising to improve their client for Game Pass on PC, promising improved install reliability and faster download speeds over the coming months. But more details are coming soon on that. So there just seems to be, I mean, and I guess until Game Pass is a lot better on PC, that might be a reason. But for the most part, there doesn't seem to be a lot of reason to pick up a Series X.
I mean, I feel like Game Pass alone is a good enough
reason.
Yeah,
but
there's
get Game Pass working pretty well on PC.
I think if you have the right gear, like Ash and I have, these 120 hertz displays behind us. His is in another room, but you get the point. Right. We spent a stupid amount of money on a very expensive TV. I feel like the improvements that you get in older Xbox and Xbox 360 and even Xbox One games definitely make the Series X a cool machine to have. I agree that there's not that oh shit wow moment that we've seen on a few PS5 games now, because Microsoft took a more conservative approach with their hardware. But I would say for if you don't own an Xbox One, I would absolutely recommend you skip it and get at least a Series S. It's $299, great Game Pass machine, and you can still get all the cool benefits of, super fast load times, just not at 4K. And for a lot of people, I think that's the way to go. If I ever end up buying a second Xbox, it'll be an S instead of an X, and it'll go downstairs so my kids can play all my Game Pass stuff that I have.
Plus, you throw in on top of that cloud gaming. You can play Banjo-Kazooie on your phone now. Like,
right.
Even the games that aren't on PC, like they've just been hitting home runs constantly, and it's just awesome to see.
The other thing is you can use your own Xbox as an xCloud server. So you can play, even over the internet, you can play your own Xbox when you're away from home, which is really, really cool. And I wish Nintendo and Sony would... I mean, Nintendo not so much. I could just take the Switch with me. But I wish my PS5, I wish I could just open up an app on my phone and play my PS5 on the road.
Yeah.
Right.
Or an app on my Switch, if you're listening, Microsoft.
Shellshock Prime with a good reminder in the chat, though. Not everyone games on PC, and I mention that because I'm the poster child for that. I don't play PC games at all, or as little as I can. I do much prefer the console experience. So for me, I have an Xbox One S. Would I like to upgrade to an Xbox Series S one day? Maybe. Just for the Game Pass experience for sure. But I do like that Microsoft offers that flexibility, right? Do you need an Xbox Series X if you have a really high-end PC to play a lot of the games that are available on both? No, you don't. But for those of us who don't play on PC, an Xbox does make sense. I just wish there were a few more games on it exclusive that I wanted to play, like there are on PlayStation platforms. But I am certainly open to the idea of upgrading my Xbox One S at some point. The problem is I haven't even turned it on in like a few years, I don't think. A couple of years.
Wow. That's a mood.
And it's just because I don't have a whole lot that I want to play on that I can't already play on either PS5, PS4, or Switch. I'm not into Halo. I'm not into Gears of War. I love Forza, but I don't know if Forza by itself is enough for me.
The final word I want to have on this topic is that I feel like this kind of highlights... I feel like we're all roughly the same age here, in the same age group at least. And I feel like I feel like Microsoft has hit on probably what the future of gaming will be at some point. I think that everyone's going to go with this model sooner or later. And I would guess probably later. But I definitely feel that disconnect between wanting things the way they are because that's what I have grown up with. I definitely prefer Sony's approach. It is the traditional approach that I am a huge fan of because it's all I've known for my whole life. Sony is doing what console manufacturers have done since the beginning. And Microsoft is doing this new weird thing that I like, but not nearly as much as I like just classic AAA games on super powerful hardware that impress the hell out of me. And I feel like my kids, though, when they grow up, they're going to, this is going to be the way they play games, by and large.
Yeah. Well, and plus when we're in a future that is increasingly digital, even if you have a physical game, like we already know the CMOS battery issues with the PS3 and 4 that I am confident will be fixed one day before their end of life. But the fact is, once you get to like the PS4 generation, eventually physical games, if you can't download the patches, they're nothing at a certain point. So it's smart for Microsoft to go this way and just lean into it because that's just the way it's going to be, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, you make an excellent point. I remember Red Dead Redemption 2 had like a 58 gigabyte patch on day one. It was almost the size of the entire game. So
and then Warzone takes up your whole hard drive by itself if you have it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Ridiculous. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next bit of news as I think people are ready to riot.
Oh,
nice.
I like it.
That was well done.
That was hot.
Should have slicked your hair back on that one.
Anyway, Riot has shut down a League of Legends fan game / legacy server called Chronoshift after its creators say the company tried to extort them. Now, they're working again. It's a legacy server that would be bring League of Legends back to how it was originally, kind of like the unofficial servers that preceded and continued in the wake of WoW Classic. This comes from Kotaku, by the way, so I'm going to be mentioning them, kind of shortening it a few times. But basically, what's that?
Sorry, I just laughed about shortening Kotaku a few times.
I mean, they have their whole long thing, so I'm just trying to pick out the big thing here. But either way, Riot said that it has sent a cease and desist request to developers of Chronoshift after one of them posted an exchange with a Riot employee to Reddit earlier this week. The post showed a back and forth over Discord, during which a member of Riot's security department named Zed wrote to a Chronoshift developer that Riot's legal team isn't super thrilled about your project, unfortunately, and is looking for a way to come to a mutually acceptable end to it. A few lines later, the conversation, this Zed took it in a bizarre direction, saying that their team had archives of the chat that channels the Chronoshift team chat channels the Chronoshift team, tried to delete, and says, "You've obviously put a lot of work into Chronoshift, but I assure you that the Chrono break is coming." The hell?
I really like the way they put it there. Or the way Zed put it there, just because it makes me pine for Chrono Break. But
Right. Basically, they said, "Give me what I'm looking for, and we won't sue. Refuse, and we will." That's like a shame what happened to your knees situation there. And the Chronoshift developer said they've never tried to make the project anything other than free because they've never asked for a donation. They were paying everything out of expenses in their own pockets. It's just not something they've done. And Riot said they're basically disappointed with the tenor of the conversation that took place, but sort of saying hands off on that, and basically just demanding it. In response, the story was updated at 5 p.m. Eastern today. A member of the Chronoshift development responded saying that it's unlikely the server will be returning after speaking with their legal counsel. They wanted to express disappointment because, well, how did League of Legends begin? It was a mod. It was a product of fan works and mods. And he said there were so many better ways to handle this, and the project put so much effort into avoiding doing wrong by Riot as much as you can while creating an emulation, especially since most of Riot's products and game modes are based on mods and the community. Imagine if Blizzard preventing modding of StarCraft or Warcraft 3. So many great maps and games would have never existed, including League of Legends. Riot stood on the shoulders of giants, climbed the ladder they were holding to the top, then pulled the ladder up from beneath them and said, "I climbed this ladder first, therefore the ladder is mine." So basically, kind of a crappy situation all around from Riot, but Riot's never really shown themselves to be other than crappy recently. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't it just
exactly.
a bunch of dude bros that treat people like shit? I'm not really.
We know they treat women like shit from based on reports prior to now. But I mean, as a few people in our chat are pointing out, Riot is a problematic at best company, and there's certainly, you can't defend their practices. At the same time, it's unfortunate because I do believe that the developers of Chronoshift have done their due diligence in going their best to not run afoul of any of Riot's legal rights here. And it doesn't matter, but the straight truth, unfortunately, is that legally it doesn't matter. Even if Riot are being assholes about this, even if they are morally in the wrong, legally they're not. Even though we wish they were, I do believe these legacy servers should be able to exist, especially because they're not trying to make a profit. But that's just not the way the letter of the law goes in these things.
Prevented them from doing their thing to make the MOBA.
Yeah. My only thought is, when do you think we're going to see a League Classic option or a separate game or server? Because that's probably the reason that they took interest in it whatsoever, I would think, is that they're thinking about doing a WoW Classic, but for League. Yeah,
I was going to say, at least with WoW, didn't they incorporate the folks that were working on the vanilla WoW server into the WoW Classic project?
I think so. I don't know if in a paid capacity, but I think so.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, they still let them do what they were doing. I mean, even if it did become a commercial product, which, not the best way, but certainly better by far than what we're seeing here.
Yeah, I mean, again, according to this article, those unofficial servers are still continuing, so...
Joseph Rutkin in the chat... Joseph Rutkin brings up a very important point that I agree with, saying if a law is morally repugnant, you have the obligation to break it. And I agree. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, well, that's the law, so that's what they should do. But you also have a moral obligation to yourself not to get sued, right? To yourself and your family. And that's all I'm talking about here. Obviously, yes, I don't think that the law is the law no matter what. And, you shouldn't question that. But as the laws currently stand, Riot does have the right to do what they're doing, and I'm sure the developer of Chronoshift doesn't want to get sued to hell and back either, which is all I'm saying. But yeah, I think this just sucks for the Chronoshift devs personally.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to point this out just because we haven't read an Azran pun yet today. So he says, "Derek, to that Riot joke, I only have one response, LOL." Which
that's fantastic.
Well done, sir.
That's really good.
That is an A+ pun. I
he also says, "Is that how LOL became such a commodity?" Man, you're just on fire
2 for
every
2.
day, man. Yeah.
Azran, don't miss.
Nope. But yeah, not really too much else to say about this. It's just one of those like, well, Riot going to Riot, and it's dumb. But I've never played League of Legends. I tried it once, and I was like, well, I'm getting yelled at for not knowing what I'm doing. Bye.
It's so one of my best friends loves League of Legends, and he tried to get me into it a few times. It's so not my thing, but I also watched him play a few games in the before times back when I would go visit him in person, and it was just people screaming at him the whole time, and he would get so angry, and I'm just like, why put yourself through this? Why? It's not worth it. Your quality of life, your mental health. Why put yourself through this nonsense?
I learned that League of Legends was a game I didn't want to play when I found out that a person I had once beat the tar out of in Street Fighter 4 worked there. And normally, I've had a lot of matches where I've beat people. This guy lost his shit, threw his goddamn joystick across the room, screamed at his wife, and kicked me out of his house. And I was like, oh that's the kind of person they hire. No thanks.
Oh, Jesus. That's...
I'll give you a good transition here. The League community is just the worst that came from the Call of Duty online community back in the day. Ratcheted up to 11.
That is well done.
Well done. With that in mind,
nice.
Let's move on to our next news story. So, the character designer for Crash 4 and Spyro Reignited Trilogy, Nicholas Cole, has implied on Twitter that Toys for Bob is now solely a Call of Duty support studio specifically for Warzone. And what the hell? This is not good. Basically, then Toys for Bob also said, they've tweeted out today that Toys for Bob is proud to support development for Season 3 of Call of Duty Warzone and look forward to more to come. And that's when Nicholas Cole said, it's the end of an era, but I wish my former coworkers still with Toys for Bob all the best with what's ahead. Basically, it's been implied that there were some layoffs and Toys for Bob has enrolled into Call of Duty development, kind of mirroring what happened to, Vicarious?
All of them. Every one of them at this point.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Basically, anybody that had anything to do with Crash and Spyro coming back are now rolled into other development studios at Activision. So, thanks, Activision.
Yeah, this headline to me played off of one that I had seen a couple days ago, which was there was a leak that came out. It was a 4chan leak, so obviously grain of salt, that then got posted to Discord and got DMCA'd by Activision. So less of a grain of salt. That Sledgehammer's Call of Duty 2021 was canceled. We haven't heard any confirmation of that, but then the following day, Bobby Kotick, the CEO of Activision Blizzard, took a pay cut of 50%, which he's never done before. And then we hear all of this about everyone working on Warzone, because Warzone is the only game we're getting this year, besides a rumor of Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer, maybe. So to me, seeing all of these happen like rapid fire day after day makes me think that there might be validity to that issue, that Sledgehammer's Call of Duty game was supposed to be out last year. We weren't supposed to get Black Ops Cold War last year, but that game got delayed because it wasn't ready, so Black Ops got rushed up a year. And then now it's canceled entirely, and Infinity Ward apparently, I'm guessing, doesn't have time to finish their game in the next 4 months, effectively. So it's a really interesting turn of events that to see all of these things coming out, because we haven't had a year without Call of Duty since Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Wow. Point.
Apparently, this is Andy Robinson from VGC was saying that he was told that virtually every studio at Activision is now working on Call of Duty Warzone. And another tweet, the Call of Duty news, I don't think it's official or anything like that. It's Charlie Intel as they're at. But it's basically saying this now means Infinity Ward, Treyarch, Raven Software, Sledgehammer, Beanox, High Moon Studios, Toys for Bob, Activision Shanghai, and Demonware all now working on Call of Duty.
The fuck?
Yeah. Unbelievable. I mean, of course it makes sense because money talks and Call of Duty is a money machine, but it's just it's a shame, especially obviously for Crash and Spyro fans to be hearing this. From a business standpoint, I do get it, but it just leaves such a bad taste in my mouth. And as someone who could not care less about Call of Duty, But would like to see Spyro return. I mean, at least Crash already got to, but I'd still like to see Spyro return someday in a new game.
Yeah, not a Spyro 4. What the hell?
This it sucks. But again, from a bottom line standpoint, it's hard to assail, right? From a business standpoint.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Apparently Warzone's good, but that's their is that their Fortnite like game?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. Yeah, they're battle royale.
I've heard good things, but I'm with you, Ash. I've played a few Call of Duties, and I've even enjoyed a couple way back when.
Same.
But it's not a series that, you know, I care much for, or I follow to any.
It's a sports title at this point. Like, all right, new game for this year. Cool.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's the summer blockbuster that they release in October instead of summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't care less about it, and I'm sad to see franchises I do care about on the chopping block to make room for Dude Bro Shooty Game, 38, Doritos edition.
Right.
So
I will say
I did really enjoy the original COD4. Like the OG Modern Warfare, I had a lot of fun with multiplayer wise. A lot of fun. Like I can definitely enjoy and appreciate these games in their own way. But
Activision always does.
Right.
Yeah. I was going to say, I did scroll up just to find this. Sci-Fi Lullabies in the chat had mentioned that it's awful, but they don't think it means Toys for Bob's working on COD forever, which I agree with. I think this is probably a temporary thing, especially if those rumors are true that we're not getting a Call of Duty this year, and it's all hands on deck to get something out because their investors will be mad. And if their investors are mad, more people will get laid off.
True, but it does hurt the fact that they lost people in the first place. Like the people were laid off. It's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, Crash 4 did not sell that great. So,
See, I had heard that initial report that it hadn't sold great, but that was a really weird comparison that was being made. So I had been waiting. Like, they compared the physical only sales in the UK only during a pandemic, and to the Crash Insane trilogy. So I didn't really put much of a stock into that. It had sounded like it did pretty well, like maybe not Insane trilogy numbers, but enough to have justified its, to make its money back, and then a little bit, especially with Crash on the Run now a thing. I'm sure that helped subsidize a little bit of it, if you will.
Sure.
There's one.
I'd be curious to know.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Oh, that was it. I would be curious to know what the actual sales figures are. Go for it, Steve.
There's one point that I always think of anytime Call of Duty comes up, and this is the first time in TNT history we've talked about Call of Duty. Hopefully, it's one of the last. But one thing that I always feel a little bit sad about when I think of Call of Duty is the fact that, dude, bro, my shit got fucked up, so I have to shoot / slice you too. It's straight up dog time. Never came out. Like, I still want that game, and I'm not fucking joking. That's a real game that was going to come out.
I was like, what the hell did you just say?
Right. What? Yeah.
Yeah. It's colloquially referred to as Dude Bro 2. There is no Dude Bro 1. And it is the name of the game. Its full title is actually Dude Bro, my shit got fucked up, so I have to shoot / slice you too. It's straight up dog time. And they even had John St. John, the voice of Duke Nukem, tied to the project at one point. And I really wanted to see this game come out. And it was like a fan project that ended up fizzling out and never releasing. But it was born out of an old NeoGAF thread way back in the day where someone was talking about Call of Duty. And
if it helps, you could play Bulletstorm as Duke Nukem. It'd be pretty close.
That's true. I hear that you get extra points for crotch shots in that game. So
yes, you do.
That does capture the raw energy of Dude Bro 2.
Activision's going a long way to make them more hated than EA, so I'm sure EA's happy about that. But EA is also like, the last military shooter I played and really enjoyed was Battlefield Bad Company 2. Like, that had a fun feel to it, and the destructive engine in that was really cool. Like, I played a lot of multiplayer with friends in that game. I don't know why they never made a Bad Company 3, because I enjoyed the hell out of that game.
I think it was a profit reason, because I loved Bad Company 2, and then I was big into Battlefield 3. And I remember someone on one of the development teams had said, it just wouldn't make money. So they never did. But man, Bad Company was so incredible.
It had actual personality.
Yeah, it was so charming. I will say credit to EA. Now, I'm a little biased here. I play a lot of Apex Legends. But credit to EA. They've given Respawn just the checkbook They said you can make whatever you want, whenever you want at this point. Like, they saw success in Apex, and that means that we're probably going to get Titanfall 3 eventually.
Nice.
And Titanfall 3 will be one of the best shooters ever made, I have no doubt.
I've not played Titanfall 2, but it is free on Steam this weekend, I believe, and it's definitely got a. I think it's seeing a bit of a resurgence.
Yeah, I would say I highly recommend it for the campaign. The multiplayer, you're going to play only the experts at this point, so you'll have fun, but good luck. It's not. It won't be pretty.
Yeah, I remember Titanfall 1 making a big splash, and I really wanted to play Titanfall 2. I feel like I need like a full-fledged single-player campaign to really get me invested in those games. I'm not much of a multiplayer focused guy.
I do too.
Yeah, 2 has a full campaign.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Oh.
I should give it a shot.
2's got story and lore that they're following through with Apex. Like, there's a whole thing. I mean, I don't really care about the lore when Apex is concerned because they wait 6 months to do it every season. But, like, there's a really good campaign in Titanfall 2.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
I'll have to give that a shot.
Joseph Brecken in the chat says, Respawn made Apex without letting EA know, right?
Yeah. Respawn doesn't care. I mean, those are the guys that, like, the two heads of Respawn were the guys that made Medal of Honor and then Call of Duty. They are, like, the modern first-person shooter kings. So they can do whatever they want, and no one's going to stop them.
God damn.
I love that, having that kind of power.
Right. I'm with you, though, Steve. I'm so bad at multiplayer shooters. Like, I survive for maybe 5 seconds on average, but I have been known to borrow a COD game from a friend, knock down the difficulty to the easiest setting and just blast through it and just enjoy the ridiculous power fantasy and just the Michael Bay it up for a night, right?
Yeah.
There's value in that for sure.
I think that's what made Bad Company 2 so much fun, because that's a funny thing. We only played together with each other maybe once or twice, like online. Every other time was us just sitting on a couch together, passing the controller between matches, and there'd be like tasks that you could do. Like, you get this unlock or this gun if you do like 3 knife kills in a match or 10 knife kills in a match or this type of snipe. And it's like, okay, we're all kind of decent at this type of thing. Let's try to unlock all this. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I will say, if you're not great at shooters, I still recommend Titanfall 2 because they have that whole mechanic where there are bad AI players that are meant for you to get kills. It's not kill streaks, it's point streaks.
That's awesome.
Like,
nice.
it's meant for bad players and good players to be just as competent in the grand scheme. So I like that. Really, okay. It's really cool.
Nice. I've heard great things about it. Yeah.
Well, let's go into our next story. Steve was talking about some sort of unreleased game. We got another one here. So the unreleased Super Nintendo game revival Nightmare Busters Rebirth has been announced for modern consoles. And I don't know if I know much about this one. I think, Ash, you grabbed this, correct?
Yeah, I just thought it was so cool. I've never heard of this game personally, but this was a game that was in development for the Super NES way back when, well, in 1994. And it never came out. And so now it's been picked back up by Pix and Love Games and Aurora Game Studio. And they're now giving it the proper release it never had. According to Gematsu, it's a 2D action title. It's a run and gun, 2D run and gun title. The story follows Flynn and Floyd, 2 nightmare hunting leprechaun brothers, through 6 varied and colorful environments in their journey to thwart the plans of the diabolical tyrant. It's being developed under the watchful eye of some of the game's original creators, and it's trying to make a point of keeping the foundations of the original game or the original work while enhancing, the game for 2021 with modern gameplay and current dev tools. They're entirely redoing the graphics, UI, and soundtrack. We've got traditional hand-drawn animation. They're tweaking the level design, gradual and readjusted difficulty. I'm not sure what gradual difficulty. Oh, I guess gradually increasing difficulty. Two-player mode, and several new modes added. So I don't know anything about this game, but I know I love 2D run and gun games, and I just know I love Super Nintendo, and I thought it was kind of cool that we're getting a canceled Super NES game being properly developed in 2021.
I'm not sure how I feel about this. I like the idea of an SNES game that was never finished being released on modern consoles, but it sounds to me like they're kind of taking a hatchet to it and redoing a lot of it, making it less of a product. Yeah, I would prefer if they just finished the parts that weren't done in line with the original design and released it the way it would have been released in 94, because I think that would be more of a novelty. This sounds more like they took the blueprint of a 94 game and made something much more modern around it. Which to me loses the one thing that would really get me into it in that, a new SNES game in 2021 would be absolutely 100% my shit. But I feel like this is something where they got their hands on an unfinished ROM and then decided to make something new out of it. And that to me isn't as compelling.
Sure.
I'm almost curious what the museum mode that they list is going to be, because I almost wonder that could possibly be the original game.
Yeah, see, now if it includes the original,
right,
then I'm definitely on board with that. But
yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think conceptually I like this, but as you said, Steve, it all comes down to what they actually do with it, down to the tiniest details, right? Does it have that DNA of the original game intact, or are they just kind of going in their own direction with it, which I agree with you is a lot less interesting. But on its face, I just love the concept of what's going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a cool idea, and that from that one screenshot, the idea almost seems like a little Gunstar Heroes-ish to me, especially with the character designs.
I get that. I get a little bit of Arrow the Acrobat from one of the character designs. It's definitely of that era of character design, I think.
I'd like to see it in motion.
I like that about it.
That would sell one way or the other.
Yeah. And that was the thing I'm cautious about, too, is that it's in pre-production right now. So I'm surprised they announced this so early. This would have been a perfect game to announce. It's like, hey, it's out next week. I don't know that they should have announced it maybe a year before it's even going to be out.
Yeah. That is also weird, because it'll fade from memory before it releases.
Because it's not a Kickstarter. It's just they have the budget, apparently. They have the funding. Like, this is just a game they're working on. And it's really weird to have announced it so soon.
Yeah. And I just wonder how this came about. Like, I wonder how the rights discussions happened about, hey, there's this really obscure SNES game that was never released, and we want to do something with it today. Like, I just wonder how this all came about and how it all started.
Yeah, that's a very valid question. I often wonder that, because a lot of these companies fold, or, everybody involved with these projects goes on to do other things. The gaming industry is so incredibly volatile in terms of employment that I have to wonder, people find this from like a folded up studio or something. Do they just find whoever worked on it last? Say, hey, are you
with Tomba? Tomba 1 and 2, nobody actually owns the rights to those games. Like, you would think it was the team. There was a team, I don't remember the name. It was something like 12 Monkeys or something like that. They were able to license the rights somehow to publish them on PS3. But from what I understand, a buddy of mine looked into like the actual legal rights of the game here in America, and nobody owns them. Not Sony. The developer hasn't existed since 2000, so not them. Not the team that took over the port or the PS3 digital version. Those games just exist, and no one knows who actually would legally be able to say they own them.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Also, I am posting an SNES long play I found of the original Nightmare Busters. Apparently, there's, I think, the beta of it was released, and
interesting.
So it's done then, technically.
It kind of has been. It's not like fully finished, but it's like a beta version that gives you an idea of the gameplay. And this is actually, if you go to 641 in the time frame, it's you can actually see the screenshot for that they just redid, and it looks like that type of game. It might be fun.
Interesting.
Yeah, nice big sprites for the SNES.
Interesting. I definitely like looking at the screenshots, like the work in progress screenshots they posted of the remake or remaster, whatever you want to call it. I think they look great, but I could also see this going the way of like a Mighty Number 9, where like the first ever concept screenshots they show end up looking nothing like the actual product. Yeah.
It definitely feels like that. And that's a shame too, because the original look of this is pretty solid.
It actually is. I think this looks pretty neat. I'd be down to check this out.
I'm gonna take a wait and see approach on this one.
I've been burned
before. I backed Mighty Number 9.
Cool. Sorry, I meant the original. Like I'm watching the footage Derek posted. The original game looks like it could have been pretty cool, but who knows how this remake / remaster is actually going to turn out. But the foundation seems pretty compelling.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, let's go ahead and speaking of delayed games, or they'll come eventually. Let's go ahead and put that up. All right. And Fall Guys for the Switch and Xbox has been delayed. They were previously slated for summer of 2021, but both versions are getting crossplay despite those delays. So yeah, it's coming a little later, but at least they're going to get crossplay. You can play, Switch and Xbox players can play together, which Sony does not like when that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel the same way about this now as I did when they first announced Fall Guys for Switch and then later Xbox. I was like, man, summer, is Fall Guys still going to be relevant by then? And now I'm even more worried about that. I enjoy Fall Guys a lot, but I just don't know if it's too little too late. But crossplay is nice, so we'll see.
I think the Switch could reinvigorate the game a little bit. What I'm
Possibly,
really curious about, though, is this has to, I imagine, indirectly confirm that the Switch will have the full player count of
I think they've already said it will.
Oh, did they?
I think they already confirmed that it's going to be 60 players on Switch.
Wow.
Oh dear God.
Yeah. I mean, imagine playing that in handheld mode. That would be unbearably
And that
cramped.
could maybe be
240p.
only I mean, Nintendo's website for Fall Guys, the product page says a massively multiplayer party game with up to 60 players online. And that's on Nintendo's official product page. So perhaps playing on, handheld mode will lower that, or maybe we're just looking at a variable resolution. Because I know what you're saying, Steve. Like even on PS4 or PS4 Pro, which is what I was playing it on before I got my PS5, there's some FPS hits for sure when there's a lot of stuff going on screen. And that's a PS4 Pro. So I'm with you. I wonder how they're going to get around that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm with you in that my main concern is that Fall Guys will be a memory by the time it actually lands on these consoles, and maybe this'll give the game a shot in the arm that it'll quite probably need by that point. But
Yeah.
I don't anticipate that it'll ever regain the height of its popularity. I think that ship has sailed at this point, but it is still a really fun game. I last few times I picked it up and played it, I've had a lot of fun with it. And I wish that there was something that could keep that hype going for me, because there's nothing that really makes me go, holy shit, I need to play this game now, like I did, for the month or so following its release.
Season 4 has been a lot of fun, but I'll be the first to admit that Season 3 and 4, they've done a great job, but I would not be still playing it if I didn't play it with friends, right? Straight up, I wouldn't be playing it by myself. But yeah, I think you're right about, as we said, Fall Guys may have just lost a little bit too much of its relevance by the time this hits, but Switch may reinvigorate it. Although your comment about it being a memory just makes me think of Sephiroth being a Fall Guys fan and being like, Fall Guys will never be a memory. And I like that's my headcanon. Sephiroth is a Fall Guys fan in my headcanon.
Nice.
I know for my friend group, we all looked at Fall Guys as the kind of game where we would play it for like 20 minutes to warm up for the real game of the night. It was just the perfect storm of momentum and being on PS Plus at just the right time. And I'm sure everyone being home with COVID helped that game. Plus the streamer influence that it had on Twitch within that first week or two. It just was that perfect storm. But then they really struggled to keep up with updates and keep the game, to me personally at least, super interesting for more than a couple rounds at a time. So I don't know how it would be able to regain even a more than a fraction of its audience.
And then Among Us hit, and that held momentum despite
and then Among Us killed it. Yeah.
anything else. Like that one just blew it up. And
Although
that's
I
the
will
best
say
game
that
ever
Among
because
Us,
of Ratchet Clank skin.
Yeah,
I will say that Among Us seems to have lost a bit of its momentum too now, though. I don't hear about it as often as I used to. Yeah.
I think that's sort of in the same vein that we don't really hear about Fortnite, but that's just because we're all adults.
Yeah.
Like Among Us is a kids game. Like it's not for kids, but it's a game that kids play the most at this point. So I think we're kind of getting aged out of it at this point.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say anecdotally, I never have any problem. Like when my friends and I play once a week, and we never have any problems getting matched up. It's not taking a long time, but of course that's just anecdotally, and you can still have thousands and thousands of players, and that's still be fairly easy to get matched up. So yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
let's go ahead and move on.
Oh, I was just going to say I've still not played Among Us. At this point, I'm waiting for the PS5 version. But
There you go.
we'll see. Speaking of
I'm
PlayStation,
mad that I have to buy it now.
Yeah.
That stupid
Exactly.
skin.
That is a wonderful skin. All right. But yeah, speaking of PlayStation, let's go ahead and bring up our next topic. Future Publishing has officially retired the official UK PlayStation magazine, ending a 33-year stretch of official game publications. No reason was given for the change, but they're rebranding as Play, the new magazine for PlayStation gamers, so no longer official. It's kind of odd, and I wanted to focus on this just because, you know, I had the US version of the official PlayStation magazine. I love that thing because that's how I got demo discs. That's why I got that magazine. It's like, man, I got some decent coverage and some demo discs. I'm happy now, right now. It's discovered a lot of PlayStation games that way. But
yeah. I like the original magazine. I got a few magazines per month back in the day, and OPM was always one that I looked forward to. Maybe not quite as much as something like the latter days of Nintendo Power or of like EGM, but OPM was still a lot of fun. And there is some good news here, and that is that the rebrand is maintaining the same editorial team, so nobody's losing their jobs. But it is still the end of an era in the sense that this is the last official print gaming magazine that's finally rebranding. And it's just as someone who grew up and just loved video game magazines back in the day, it's a little bit sad.
I hate to say this, but I read OPM, I read Nintendo Power, but I never trusted either of them because they were a magazine officially associated with a brand. And I remember even as like a 14-year-old reading them and being like, they're not going to say Mario's bad. There's a Nintendo magazine. They're not going to say Final Fantasy VII sucks. This is PlayStation's magazine. I was like, I'll go read EGM and GamePro to find out what a more objective or what a more balanced opinion is.
Could feel a little.
These were
GamePro I never got into.
Oh no.
GamePro I felt like I could never. And I hear you, Steve. Like I enjoy the content from an entertainment standpoint for the official magazines, but I even as a kid I could tell. Like I was like, they're not going to say anything bad about these games.
Yeah. It was mostly the scoops because they were affiliated. They got all the sweet details. That was what you got them for. But aren't you glad that the last standing gaming magazine more or less is owned by GameStop? Don't you just love that?
Yeah,
that hurts.
That's totally that hurts.
It's
unbiased. Totally.
I don't pay for that whatsoever. There's some interesting stats here. So according to this article, in the age before the internet, OPM was the world's best-selling magazine, peaking in 1999 with its 42nd issue, which sold 450,000 copies. And according to the website, the modern version of OPM has a print circulation of around 20,000. So there's been a bit of a dip for magazines.
I'm surprised it's 20,000 for the UK only. Like for a print run, that's honestly pretty high for a magazine, I feel, nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say I think we all grew up, kind of seeing the slow death of the video game magazine as websites like N64.com became IGN and, gaming news sites started to spring up left and right. And I remember kind of the transitional period where I no longer got my news from these magazines being dropped off in my mailbox every month. I used to, as a kid and a young teenager, I would wait for a month in between, getting game news. And then I had this weird, awkward period where I would read IGN. And then by the time my magazine came, I was like, well, I read 90% of this stuff and I would just skim it for the exclusive things. Yeah. And then those exclusives started disappearing, and I frankly stopped reading the magazines that were still coming. So it was kind of an interesting thing. And these days, I mean, I think I look at magazines more as a novelty. I think that I don't really love Game Informer anymore, I used to really enjoy their content. Back when Imran was there, I really enjoyed reading his stuff. I enjoyed the exclusive features they got because of, frankly, their links to GameStop. And I still think they have some interesting exclusive content, but most of that stuff is made available on Twitter or online before the magazine even comes out now.
That's the thing. Is the advent of the internet just completely made print magazines obsolete, and that's definitely a necessary evolution that needed to happen. That was the natural way of things. But I gotta say there's a certain quality to me, a certain value that a really good video game magazine has, and I do still miss those days, even though I realize that things need to be the way they are now. And I want to say I think Nintendo Force does a pretty damn good job of kind of reviving those days. Like their magazine's very well produced, and it's got just the visual layouts of each feature and just the way it's written. It definitely brings me back to those days, and it's pure nostalgia for me, and I admit that. Like it makes sense to have cutting news coming out on the internet, on Twitter and Resetera and everything, and get it immediately. But man, I just miss the days of kicking back, like going to the mailbox as a kid, opening it up. Oh shit, my new Nintendo Power's here, or my new EGM's here, and then taking a couple hours and kicking back and just reading.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, please.
No, you don't. No, I've cut you off enough. You go.
I was gonna say I wish that we had that the idea of the digital magazine didn't really die out the way it did. Like when the iPad was a new thing, for a brief period, we had a couple different gaming magazines that were available there, and you could read through them, and instead of a screenshot there, you'd have a video, and you could play the video while you're reading the article. And I was like, this is cool. This is exactly what I want. And I get why they don't do it, because it didn't really generate that much more in revenue than just putting up a website and throwing that stuff up. Magazines require careful layout work and stuff like that people just don't do a lot of, because it doesn't add value. But I do miss it.
And what I was going to say was a lot of the officially associated, like, branded pushes, I would say, have gone to things like YouTube. We have PlayStation Access and Outside Xbox, both UK based, interestingly enough, that are like officially effectively licensed channels about those brands. So you have like those weekly little like listicles or what have you that either give you a little bit of more detail about a game that maybe we wouldn't have known about outside of them dropping like, here's this new thing about Horizon Forbidden West or whatever it might be. And I always thought that was an interesting evolution, because I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those same staffers somehow made their way over to those separate entities as the industry has evolved over time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
A couple of people in the chat were reminding us, and this plays into exactly what you were saying, Steve, that Nintendo Power, much as I love them and miss them, back in the day, did give Shadow the Hedgehog an 8 out of 10. So,
told you.
Told you. Yeah.
Well, speaking of interesting connections between companies and products, let's go ahead and move on to our final news story. So, Oculus has begun selling a Oculus 2 headset that doesn't require Facebook, though, despite losing the Facebook connection, it's an extra $500.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Hi.
Price of privacy.
Hi, Facebook. Fuck you. Eat shit. I hate this. This is the worst thing you could have done. Like, I hated you a lot before, but apparently now I know I'm worth only $500 to you. So, yeah, go suck it. This is terrible.
$500 of data that they're losing out on.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I guarantee you they ran some type of calculation to determine the data they could harvest from us with one of these fucking things is worth just $500. And they're like, we'll just make back our investment on these idiots. That makes this thing like a $800 headset. It puts it in competition with the Vive, with the Valve Index. This is objectively the worst headset at its price point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not going to pay for the privilege of not having Facebook harvest my information, and Facebook sucks, as you said, Steve.
Yeah.
But I guess this is the price you pay for not just having your privacy completely co-opted your personal data completely co-opted by Facebook. But yeah, this is not worth it. Hell no.
Yeah. And I will say, this is not credit to Facebook. I want to make that very clear. That as PC Gamer notes here, the specs are actually pretty impressive for the Oculus Quest 2. For the whole thing is only $300 if you care about Facebook stealing your data, which is incredibly low. They're undercutting it intentionally so
That's
they can steal your
true.
data.
Yep.
So for $300, that thing is incredible because the PSVR is still around $150, $200, and it's not even close to the quality of this. It's got 6 gigs of RAM, it's got 64 gigabytes of internal storage, which actually is pretty good for VR games. It's got close to resolutions for VR are weird, but it's got 1832 by 1920 per eye display, and it comes with two controllers. So that's really impressive as far as like VR tech goes for $300. It probably is an $800 machine, all things considered. It's just that they know that they can sell it for cheaper and then get your data, which is probably worth more than $500, really.
Yeah. So here's the fun part, because I'm reading more of this article, and geez. So it's not just $800 for this other model. There's also an annual fee of $180 in a year after purchase, which covers Oculus's business services and support.
Oh man!
What?
Why would you ever?
Yeah.
God.
They actually have. There's actually, according to this article, if you take a look at the supplemental Oculus data policy, you can find out what sort of data is being collected when you use the Quest 2. Things such as your physical dimension, your hand size, how big your play area is using the Oculus Guardian system, data on any content you create using Quest 2, as well as your device ID and IP address.
I mean, they want to know my physical size. Like that seems like the weirdest one of those. Like, we now know that Steve is 5'9" tall. I'll give you that one for free, internet. They're like, it's on my driver's license.
I already wasn't going to ever even look at the Quest 2 just because of its its association with Facebook. But this just makes me ironically, they're like, oh, here's a non-Facebook version. Yeah, but the way you're giving it to us for $500 more and an annual fee just makes me even less interested.
And the thing I find incredible is that the annual fee costs almost as much as buying the Facebook connected version.
Right.
Like, it's an absurdly high annual fee.
Yeah, the implication is that they're saying that that's for business use, but I have no idea what business use you have for a VR headset, except for VR cafes, which are only in malls, and malls are going to be dead anyway. So,
yeah,
I mean, people have to make VR porn somehow.
You don't want to log into Facebook for that, I guess.
Yeah.
Steve has logged into X videos. Oh God, sorry, Mom. I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
don't share it.
One of our previous guests, I have to point this out, one of my favorite experiences was E3 2018. Ben Bertoli, who was previously on the show, it was like E3's big, or I'm sorry, this is further back, like 2016. This was VR's coming out party at E3, and there was a VR porn booth, and I had the distinct pleasure, because I wasn't going to do it. I was like, I'm not watching porn in public. That's just not a thing I'm doing. But he was like, I'm going for it. And he walks up to the totally empty booth. And I could not have orchestrated this myself. While he is watching porn in the headset, just a throng of people show up. And so as soon as he takes off the headset, he realizes he's just been watching porn in front of like a gigantic crowd. And the look on his face when he took off the headset and just saw like 50 people that weren't there before was priceless.
Were they displaying the screen as well outside of the VR? Okay, because that would be hilarious. If he got an 80-inch screen of porn behind him and he takes it off. Oh my God.
I mean, also, what was he expecting though? At the same time, if no one's touching it and you're that one person, of course people are gonna notice that.
That's a good question. I remember asking him, I'm like, so how was it? And he's like, well, it was good until I took the headset off and realized I saw the crowd in front of me.
Put that on the box.
Oh, that's true. It was good until I took the headset off. That's a perfect back of box quote. That's perfect.
Oh, God. Well, with that, I think we've covered all the major headlines from today's news. But before we sign off, Kevin, where can we find you at?
Sure. So you can find me Twitter, Twitch, youtube.com/The Golden Bolt, where I upload lengthy retrospectives on different games, often featuring game development facets, interviews with developers, that kind of thing. Currently, I'm going through the whole Ratchet & Clank franchise. So if you want to know more about Ratchet & Clank or you want to relive those memories, the first 2 videos are about an hour and a half each. So get some popcorn, but I think they'll be worth it. But more importantly than plugs, thanks you guys for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, it's been a pleasure having you here.
I'd love to have you back on because this is.
I have a feeling that you'll be back on the show sometime in June.
I would be happy
to. Sometime in June.
Gladly have Kevin back on for a post Ratchet discussion.
I feel like this is the panel for like a Ratchet and Clank review discussion right here.
7-hour supercut.
And also, thank you for being our very distinguished special guest for our final episode of TNT Season 1. That's really cool. So yeah.
I think with that being said, we can actually reveal that come Monday, no longer will TNT be patron exclusive to watch live. We are making it live for everybody.
That's right.
Yes.
And TNT is also coming to every podcast service, as Greg Miller would say, knock, knock, around the globe.
Every back episode dating back to our launch is going to be on every major podcast service. And yeah, this is all part of a larger relaunch we're doing for our Patreon and adding a bunch of new cool tiers and stuff. So Derek will do the spiel himself, but certainly go check us out on Patreon if you're looking forward to seeing or interested in our new and improved
we'll have a whole
tiers and perks and all that stuff starting on Monday.
We'll have a whole lineup of stuff to check out on the Patreon for all of our changes. But yes, the big thing is for non-patrons is that now TNT will be today's news tonight and not yesterday's news this morning. So
yes.
It's about time.
Yes, but our live audience perk is being maintained into season 2. So even though the show is going live for everybody to watch, there is still going to be a patron exclusive live audience feed that we'll be interacting with specifically, and not the YouTube chat. Yeah.
So you want to get noticed? You want to have your comments in there? Live audience tier.
Yeah.
But before we sign off, I also want to give a special thanks to our patrons at the producer tier. This show really wouldn't be possible without all of you. You make this happen. We can't appreciate all of our patrons enough. But of course, a massive thank you to our executive producers and above, and that includes Jared Ettinger, Brandon Bovia, Rob Arman X, Itiono Ben, Dan and Twistle, Dennis J, Z Patty, Hyrule Hermit, Sky Blue Flames, Adam O'Sullivan, It's ATM, Octopuppet, Richard Herrera, Michael Phone, Floating Mew, Aiko Carroll, Christopher, The D-Pad, Vesmio, Waffle King, Nick Waterman, Kitty Kong Facts, Angel Martinez, Vedron Hotik, Makalau, John, Joshua Hunter, Evernight Studio, Benny Yao, Alicia, Azran127, Ken Rouleo 9, Jake Pelka, Geller, Joseph Rutkin, Titus Malvolio, Charlie Bird, Geeky Griffin, Lucky Wonderfish, Top Dog 23100, Young Ben Kenobi, Douglas Chomix, Andrew Medeiros, RMM, Patrick Harrison, Becca, Rocks the Cat, Fizzy Wighoid, Flaming Highwayman, Sean Garrett, The Legend of Groose, Eddie B, Kai Ed, Kit Fisto, West Egg, Master Links, Sean Davis, Deaneth, Jackson Jordan, Michael McCall, Matthew Wong, Ashish Joshi, Goron Amber, Straight Lace, Hoobie, Wolf X Blake and Moon Macarons, Kane, Captain Finlandia, 60 Minutes and 60 Seconds, The Game Orb, Dano, the Artist, Ravelox, Synchro Lord, Brainchild, Rosa Bowling.
Hi, Mom.
Kodar Peck, Scuff 196, Skull Kid Tiger, AJB Cool, Jason Uloa, Jaden Buck, Phantom Project, Wheezy Penguin, Anthony Wilson Jr., Sakuragi, and Derek. Thank you all so much for all of your continued support. And remember that you too could become a patron over at patreon.com/gvgaming, where you can watch today's news tonight live for as little as $5 a month, or should I say, be part of the chat for as little as $5 a month. The official chat that's on the screen. It's changing. We're going to have to change up the script a bit, so keep that in mind. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to Good Vibes Gaming for more good times like these. So until next time, good night and good vibes. See you for season 2. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.